Hi, everyone. I'm James Garbutt.
And I'm Denny Dumas.
And this is the Garbutt Dumas Real Estate Podcast.
It is March 15th already, which is kind of crazy. We are nearing the end of Q1 2023. Seems like this year is kind of a bit of a whirlwind. There's been a lot of changes. Notably, the most is interest rates this year and what is happening with Bank of Canada, what is happening with inflation, what is happening with consumer price index. There's a lot of terminology, economic terminology that consumers have been hearing and asking us about. And since neither of us are economists, nor do we have a background in this, it's difficult for us to project. But at the same time, we do like sharing our thoughts. We do like sharing our experience in the real estate industry of what is currently happening, what consumers are saying, and where we are getting a feeling that this market could go if rates hold as they did last Wednesday.
It's kind of funny. It's like turning into a pastime of ours talking about interest rates. Producer Carl mentioned this morning, and I've had a few clients mention, like, I've never cared more about interest rates. This is hilarious times. Like most dinner conversations are about the interest rates. Everybody cares about the interest rates. We're all very invested in the interest rates.
I've been a realtor for 9 years now, and I'd say the first 7, the conversation of interest rates came up so infrequently that like I wasn't even aware, other than like a personal mortgage or something, I wasn't even really aware what was the current offering from banks in interest rates. I knew roughly that, 20, whatever, I'm just making this up now, but 2014 to 2018, 19, let's say, an average interest rate was like around 3 to 3.5. And variable was slightly lower than that. If you got like something around 2.7, that was pretty good. Then COVID happens. Interest rates go literally to zero. And now we find ourselves in the opposite.
It's really interesting how it's impacted the sentiment so far this year. A lot of people were hopeful in January that the rates would hold. They didn't. There was a little tiny increase. And now that they've held, it's like everybody wants to have market confidence. It seems like all of the buyers that I'm working with, we're just holding out for that tiny, tiny glimpse of hope so they could be like, see, Dad, now I'm going to buy. Like, it's been a real, it's been a real roller coaster for some of them. But just that hold, it really goes back to what we always say, especially in Greater Vancouver, that it's a really strong market and people want to buy. And right now, what's happening, in the US, you're seeing a little bit more market confidence and people will be like, heck yeah, look at the real estate market. We're doing pretty good.
I think it's a natural human characteristic to be risk averse. And so when people see rates climbing and market values changing weekly, I think it's a natural reaction to kind of sit on the sidelines and say, let's kind of wait this out until there's a little more certainty. And maybe this last Bank of Canada meeting on last Wednesday, March 8th, maybe that is the sign that people need. If you don't know, the Bank of Canada did not increase the overnight rate last Wednesday. That was the first time in about 12 months that the rate has not gone up, which is due to a few things. I think the Canadian Consumer Price Index, CPI, was lower than anticipated after the month of February. I think it came back at 5.9 and they were expecting it to be in like the 6.1, 6.2 range. I think that kind of helped steer them towards holding off and seeing what happens over the coming months. But what's going on in the States right now seems like the Bank of Canada and economists locally are more cautious about future rate hikes now. And I've even heard some hinting towards rates starting to come down as early as end of Q2 this year. I've heard more towards the summer and into the fall, which sounds like that's more the consensus, but I've heard a few people say it could happen sooner than what we're expecting.
It's kind of hard to wade through all of the opinions and speculation.
Mm-hmm.
I find that a lot of the speculation and opinions are very positive. Everybody wants to cheer us on. Everybody wants to be like, yes, we think interest rates are going to hold. Yes, they're going to go down. The important thing is to look at the overall picture, which is what the Bank of Canada has been doing and the economists have been doing. They're really, really like looking exactly pointed at inflation. So as long as inflation can stay below 6, I think that we'll probably see them hold off on raising it. But I think if that number goes down from 5.9, we should see some relief in the interest rates within the next few months, maybe, which would be pretty exciting. I wonder what that will do to the real estate market.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about I have actually considered the idea of putting real estate fortune teller on my business card just because it's fun. And I'd say
use that little crystal ball emoji.
That's not bad. Yeah, that's not bad. Or maybe just have a business card shaped as a crystal ball.
Perfect.
But let's talk about what is actually happening right now in the last 7 days since that Bank of Canada announcement.
I'll say from someone on the streets, like working with people every day, it's been a pretty interesting turnaround. Even leading up to the announcement, we were already feeling people settle into the new banking environment and the new interest rate environment. Most of the buyers and sellers that we're working with have already educated themselves on the interest rates. They understand what they're purchasing. They're purchasing within their means. Whereas there was a time in the summer of 2022 where people were quite literally approved for one amount one day, and then the next day it went down significantly. So those days are behind us. Most of the buyers right now are buying in ranges that they're aware that they can borrow in, with the hope that they will buy and then ride the interest rates back down. Whereas before, they were buying knowing that they were going to be riding the interest rates up. So I think leading up to last week, we were already starting to see a little turn in the market. And overnight, I've seen multiple offers on properties that we weren't getting multiple offers on before. Now, it could be a coincidence because we're heading into March and it's just that time of year. But we haven't seen multiple offers in months like we're seeing right now.
I think the reality is that with this new announcement, and just naturally because of the time of year, there's a lot more people who are seriously looking at making a move, and the inventory is not catching up. So I think we've said on the podcast before, January was the lowest number of new listings in Greater Vancouver since 2004, and February was 5% higher than January. So there is just not enough on market, and as demand increases, guess what? There's more people looking at each listing. There's more people offering on each listing. We can share examples. In the last 7 days alone, a 2-bedroom condo in New Est priced at $450,000 in an old building that has work coming up. Multiple offers within 24 hours. 10 showings, 3 offers, I think. Brand new duplex, half duplex in East Vancouver. Multiple offers. Very different price point, obviously. We've been on the buy side of a handful of different multiple offer scenarios. Me personally had one a couple days ago where there was 8 offers in New Est. Adam had one the other day that was 12 offers.
I've had 3 this week.
There you go. It seems like anything that is priced correctly, regardless of product type, is seeing a lot more activity than it would have 30 days ago, and significantly more activity than it would have in October, November, December.
Right. I think on the listing side too, when it comes to the market's response to the change in interest rates, is sellers are now educated with where their price points should be versus the last 9 to 10 months. They were pricing higher than the last sale while the market was really holding tight to those values. So now we're seeing sellers with more realistic price points. And when the price points are within market value, those properties are selling really quickly. We had, I think, 3 or 4 townhomes listed last week, and all of them got multiple offers. They're all listed within market value. They're not listed low. We're not like listing for multiples. We just listed for what we thought they were worth.
Where are you seeing is it just across the board, or where are you seeing the most activity? Talking about product type and location, maybe. And maybe like price point?
Right. It's actually been kind of interesting. Usually there's little hot spots that always see a little bit more action than others, but in the last 10 months, it's been really slow in areas like Langley and some areas of Surrey, especially in the higher price points, like detached houses in the 1.9 to over $2 million range. And I was booking a buyer's tour yesterday or day before yesterday, and of the 6 Langley homes in the $2 million range that my client sent me, one was available. One was available. Now, 6 months ago, I could have taken them to see 12 properties, and every agent would have actually showed up for a showing, which doesn't really happen in Langley usually. And they would all be following up with me, asking me for feedback. But I'm taking them to see one tomorrow. That's the only one that's available.
Wild. It's funny because like late in the fall, it seemed like the activity was starting to pick up on low price points. I'd say less than $1 million that we've talked about. It was like kind of the magic number. And that like 2-bedroom condo, 1-bedroom condo, smaller townhomes in the Tri-Cities, they were getting busier quicker. And the single family, especially the luxury stuff, was still very slow. You would still be able to go see 12 properties tomorrow that were listed. That seems to have changed. And I think it really is just the lack of availability.
Right.
There is not a lot of good homes that are priced correctly for sale longer than 7 days right now.
So I'd say for me, that shows a very positive sign when those higher end price point homes are starting to sell. And we all know, for all the realtors that are listening and have listed anything over 1.5 in the last 10 months, we all know that they really have been sitting. And these homes are the last ones to kind of catch on when the market starts to improve. So that's a really positive sign that they're starting to go.
Mm-hmm.
It could be any number of things. It could be the market confidence. It could be that the sellers are now actually pricing it within the range that they should be. But I think it's mostly demand. Like it's been pent up for so long. Like we talked about, eventually you have to make way because people need to buy, people need to sell. That's just part of the normal flow of things. So I like places like Langley, price points. I think watching things sell now is pretty exciting. Port Moody stays really strong all the time, but there has been a few properties in really higher price points that have been lurking around. Those ones that I've noticed have sold recently. Same for Coquitlam. New West has been very, very hot. New West has been so hot. I'm so proud of New West's real estate market because sometimes it really gets overshadowed by places like Port Moody and Coquitlam. And right now it's like really, really holding its own. Everything that we've listed there is selling very, very quickly. Our buyers have to be on top of it if they want to buy or sell in New West. So New West is like performing really well right now.
Noting that a lot of places are selling quickly and getting multiple offers and a lot more showings in the last, let's say, 30 days, but even more so in the last couple of weeks. Are you seeing price points go up yet?
Yes, actually. I would say a good example would be here in Port Moody. We sold a townhome for $10,000 more than the last sale in the complex, and like $13,000 more than the last sale in the complex. And then another one popped up right after us that listed a little bit higher than they should have based on the sales in the neighborhood, and really close to ours. And it wasn't of the quality that our listing was, but they were just kind of riding the fact. They knew that we got multiples. They knew that there was buyers kicking around, so they priced it a little bit high, which is a GD team move that we do all the time. And they also got multiples and have accepted offer. We're moving subjects tomorrow, and the agent tells me the price is pretty decent. So I think we're definitely starting to see that climb in prices. These are really small increments. We're talking about like $13,000 and $10,000 and $5,000, but that's a big difference from where it was a few months ago.
Totally agree. It's difficult to put a percentage on it comparatively to, like, let's say, if we look back, when was the bottom? Was it November? December, there wasn't much available, and it seemed like things sold pretty quickly. And then January was a bit of a turnaround, and February got busier, and now the first couple of weeks of March are even busier.
Yeah, November was a snooze fest. Yeah, and I think that was probably about the right time.
Yeah. It's difficult to put a percentage on it. We can point out like individual properties that did much better than they would have in the fall. We had another townhouse in Port Moody on Cambridge that probably was like $75,000 to $100,000 higher than I anticipated based on looking back at fall sales. That one was super busy and got multiple offers. These couple condos in New West that we've mentioned quickly, they're product types that regardless of market can be really challenging to sell. And having one last week get 10 showings in 24 hours and 3 offers is a sign that people are feeling the bottom has come and gone, and there just is a lack of availability of what to go look at.
Yeah, the vibe has certainly changed. I've had a few realtors that have offered on our properties that have won them be like, "Whoa, I thought I would never get something." Like we put offers on so much. And I was like, "Wow, that's something we haven't heard in a long time." Like buyers have struck out quite a few times in the last 3 months. That's pretty interesting.
I think what you mentioned and like really highlighting this is really key. Is when you start seeing sales in a specific complex that are very similar to each other week after week after week that are increasing in prices, this is telling us a sign of what the spring is going to be, unless we see this big flood of inventory. The likelihood of that happening is probably pretty low because have we ever seen that in Greater Vancouver? And noting how much demand there is, like it's going to take a while for inventory to build up. But when you see a really nice renovated unit sell and then a mediocre unit a week or 2 weeks after get the same response or better, that's when you can kind of summarize as buyers are feeling this anxiety a little bit again, and the FOMO kind of thing of like they don't want to miss out again and again because they feel like prices are starting to climb.
Yeah, nowhere in the world is there more FOMO and mob mentality than the Vancouver real estate market. This is where FOMO lives. It lives in Vancouver in the real estate market. Yeah.
It's a true story. When you talk to younger people who do not own, there's this like terror in their mind of, oh my gosh, am I ever going to own? Am I going to be a renter forever? When my dad bought his first house for $72,000, like, how am I going to be able to afford this only making, 60 or 70 grand a year? And it is what it is, but it's a realistic fear, I think.
So what do we think the Bank of Canada is going to do next? Let's crystal ball it. I want to know what Denny Dumas thinks.
The next meeting is when? May something. BoC meeting. The next meeting is April 12th. Oh, that's quick. My guess is no change. My guess is the same result as last week. Don't think there is. I mean, that's a short window. It's only 30 days apart. My guess is they have made the decision to halt for now and see what happens. And 30 days is not enough time to make a decision on that. So based on potentially some fear of what is happening in the US right now, my guess is no change. Spring market. Here we go. What else did we want to talk about in this one? We wanted to quickly touch on some new stuff that has happened in Greater Vancouver real estate or BC real estate this year, and how these policies are being utilized, whether as a pro or a con. So the one thing that I'd say slightly surprised how much it's being used is the cooling off period. And so with multiple offers come more aggressive offers. With more aggressive offers come lack of subjects or no subjects. And now, guess what? A subject-free offer doesn't mean a subject-free offer anymore, because there's this 3 business day window. So I've had one that actually was 6 days, which is hilarious. Selena Robinson, thank you so much for this. 6 days that a seller is waiting in limbo, trying to find out if their property is actually sold or not. And when inventory is super low, there's nothing available and everything available is competitive. It is already an extremely difficult juggling act to try to buy and sell at the same time. So now when you have this 6-day window, it's 3 business days, but sometimes it can be 6 days if there's holidays and weekends involved. Now that you have to wait 6 days, it just like prolongs the stress and anxiety and challenge for these young families that are trying to do this crazy juggle.
Yeah, I'd say before this cooling off period, and we sell quite a bit, so this is some good data, guys. Before the cooling off period, I never had a buyer ever express to me remorse for their purchase. Okay, I've never had them be like, we probably shouldn't have written that subject-free offer. I have never had that. Have you?
This is the analogy that I use. I've had it before, but it's so few and far between. Think about going to a restaurant, being like, I really feel like a burger tonight. I'm going to order a burger. Halfway through the burger, calling the server over and saying, you know what? I kind of feel like the steak tonight. I'm gonna substitute for the steak. No penalty. Send back half a burger, get a full steak. Try out the steak. It's not my thing, but you ate 3/4 of it. That's okay. You didn't finish. Now you get to move. With a legal and binding contract, there should be some sort of responsibility. We've taken away the responsibility, which is like, I made the joke to a realtor the other day, like, why do we have contracts in writing anymore? Why don't we just like handshake deal, write it on a napkin, high five at the end, walk away, be like, reconsideration. What's the point? I don't know.
It's true. Yeah. I think with this rescission period, I mean, for sellers, it puts them in a situation where they're uncertain. Like you said, it could be 6 days. It should be 3. It should be, definitely less than 6 days. But it puts them in a difficult situation if they're trying to turn around and purchase something. We've already seen that locally. Somebody had put a house on the market. It was really popular, but they had to sell it subject free to make the purchase for the place that they wanted to buy work, and they just couldn't do it because of the rescission period. So I have had one person use the rescission period and back out and pay the seller the penalty and say, nope, I changed my mind. I don't want to buy it. It's a certain type of personality and it's a certain type of situation that could make this work. And I thought in this case, I was happy that we had the rescission period because he was able to get out of the purchase. He changed his mind. He didn't want to buy it anymore. Like in that one day, something in his life changed, and the purchase didn't make sense for him after quite literally a 24-hour period. So it worked for him. So for that reason, I think, okay, cool. There's a situation where the rescission period works. I wonder how much that will happen. I wonder how often. I mean, it's only been, 3.5 months since that, 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And that's one situation. So
the problem is when you give people the option, there's a lot that will take advantage of it. Whether that is in sports with weird rules, like people are going to take advantage of what the rule says. So when you allow a consumer to back out of a legal and binding contract just because, for no reason, people are going to take advantage of it, and people are going to use it to their benefit. So we've had experiences already with people who are using the rescission period, whether or not it is a good reason or not, people are using it. But we've also had consumers who are using it to renegotiate contracts. So they know they're in the driver's seat now. It is very clear that you have 3 days to do whatever the heck you want. And what's the harm in calling the seller back and saying, we're kind of not feeling it anymore. We feel like we offered too much money. We want 10 grand off. Otherwise, we're just going to give you, a few pennies on the dollar and walk away. And that is actually happening. Maybe it sounds like a bit of an exaggeration, but we've had it happen a couple times already.
I've had people ask me, I've had other agents ask me what I thought about that. Like their clients wanted to do it. And it's real. I mean, it's not that much, it's, $1,500 on a $550,000 purchase, right? So that's not, for a lot of people, if they're making that type of purchase, the $1,500 to be in the driver's seat for them, it's worth it. It's a crazy competitive market. and people will use rules to the advantage, like you've mentioned, any way they can. Like $1,500 is no big deal. Give me 10.
I think the biggest problem I have with it is that we're solving a problem that didn't really exist. So, like any good realtor, when they're going into multiple offer scenario and their client is considering rating subject free, they're preparing a ton for this offer. It's not just like show up one day, sign a blank contract, submit it, and then discuss all property details and financing and all those things. All of these things happen before rating the offer. So now we're just giving people an out of a legal contract.
I would say,
For fun.
like in the case where my client exercised the rescission period, it wasn't because there was anything wrong with the property. We had already done all of our due diligence. We've read the documents. Like we did everything for this property. He went in knowing 100% what he was purchasing. So him exercising the rescission period to pull out had absolutely nothing to do with the property. It had to do with him changing his mind. That was it. So whereas it worked for him, and I'm glad that he was able to get out of it, was it fair to the seller that my guy changed his mind? And it was in multiples, mind you. Like, so we beat somebody else out to get it.
What if this rescission period stays around? What is a solution that we get away from people, purchasers, taking advantage of it? Is it a larger deposit? Is it like you can't renegotiate price? Is it like there has to be more stipulations?
I think the only thing that will really change it is the fee has to be higher. The fee is really low, comparatively speaking. It doesn't, the $1,500 that we, for example, for us that we gave the seller, like, do they care about that? Does that, like my client didn't care. Mm-hmm. Do they care? I don't know, right? It's not enough, I don't think.
The renegotiation thing is the thing that really bugs me. It just seems like slimy. And the 0.25% is something that a buyer can rely on and even like talk to the seller about, and like, we don't care. We'll lose the 0.25. You got to give us 10K off. And from a seller perspective, you've gone so far. You've spent all this effort getting your home ready for sale. You have vacated the home for a number of hours for showings and open houses. You have gone through this stressful process of looking at offers and going through it with the realtor and finally picking one and feeling like you can breathe. Next day, boom, we want 10K off.
Yeah, the renegotiating thing is slimy. That should be not allowed, but you know.
And yet, here we are.
Yeah.
Looking towards the spring, what's Q2 going to look like? Are we going to see more inventory? If our guess is that interest rates are going to plateau for a little bit, are more listings going to hit market? Or are we going to be in this spiral of multiple offers and everything selling in a week?
Well, our open houses have been busy. Most of our open houses see 25 groups through on the first day or two of properties that are priced within market value. I think that just seeing that amount of buyers out right now, this early in the season, is a sign that there's a big market ahead of us. We've seen multiple offers, like we just mentioned, so we know that there's buyers that actually want to buy. They're not just tire kickers. So I think, and then we've had sellers contact us after seeing more promising sales in their neighborhood or in their complex. Mm-hmm. So once people start to see those sales that would make sense for the move, and they start calling us saying, okay, we're ready to list based on this last sale. When we start seeing that, yeah, I think the inventory is going to start increasing. But with the increasing inventory, I mean, I think that there's people out there for it. I don't think that means properties are going to sit around. And I do think that the deals that everybody's looking for, the deals that they could have gotten the last few months, are behind us. So yeah, I think Q2 is going to be normal Vancouver market conditions. What is normal Vancouver market conditions? It means the good properties selling in multiple offers, the decent properties selling, the mediocre properties or properties with work coming up in the building that have been sitting will eventually start to sell too, because that's the way of things. So I think we'll start to see, normal market conditions in Q2.
Is there anywhere still that is opportunity? Or what is the opportunity? There's always opportunity. What is the opportunity moving forward for the next 3 to 6 months?
I think the most opportunity that I see is in the more expensive properties. If you wanted to upsize and that's still part of your plans, I think upsizing right now is where the opportunity is. Those properties that we're talking about haven't gone up in value at all. They did have a good dip, and now they're selling consistently. So if you want to try to catch one of those before those start to improve in price, I would say that that's where the opportunity is right now, especially if you're selling a townhouse or a condo, because those are hot right now. I think it's a matter of time before the more high-end or more expensive properties start to increase in value. So that's, for me, that's where it is. I have a few clients looking to upsize, and they're feeling like it's kind of urgent because we can see properties starting to go.
I think that's it right there. The challenge in the fall for a lot of consumers was, yes, I want to upsize. Yes, I see that there's an opportunity here. Yes, I see that the gap between my townhome or condo and this single family home that I want to buy has narrowed, but I don't see certainty that my condo or townhouse is going to sell quickly and these dates to line up, and I can't afford to hold 2 mortgages. Versus this spring, I'd say that gap will potentially start to separate a little more over time, but minimal. It's not like it's going to go $150,000, $200,000 in the next week or two. But I see that certainty available now for consumers that are looking to upsize, that what they have currently priced properly is going to sell very quickly. And we have a lot of data and a lot of experience in the last 30 days that there is a lot more certainty selling whatever you're selling right now in order to make that upsize.
Upsizing, and then taking advantage. If you see somebody, if you have wanted to sell in the last year and you start to see prices hit the point where it makes sense for you, taking advantage of that in the spring is good, because you presumably will have a little bit more to choose from. Whereas waiting until you see prices hit where you want them to, say in August, won't put you in the best position to have the best inventory available to you.
If you're planning to upsize this spring, I would say call us ASAP. The inventory is going to increase. Whether or not it will catch up to demand is to be determined. But typically, if you look at a real estate cycle, April, May, June, sometimes July are the months where the most amount of inventory is available. So if you are thinking about the upsize this year, call us.